Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
and I'm Tom.
We're Team Binge. Thank you for joining us for episode 6 of The Last of Us. This episode is called Kin. As our name, Team Binge, says, we watch each one of these episodes weekly. We only watch one episode of TV a week, thus binging each show that we talk about. So thank you for joining us. Hopefully you are enjoying the journey from Boston to Wyoming. I'm sorry, 12 miles outside of Boston to Wyoming. It's been a journey for us all. Tom, we start each one of The Last of Us with those of us talking about who you of us enjoyed this episode. So from the top, talk to me, man. What did we think of episode 6, Kin?
I very much enjoyed this episode. Even though this one was filled with 0 infected, it still had a lot of amazing character development, and finally getting to meet back up with Tommy, I thought was very emotional. And I think from a gamer's perspective, for those who played the video game, like this episode had probably one of the most famous scenes with Ellie and Joel kind of confronting each other, or at least Ellie confronting Joel, like if he actually cares about her. It's incredibly powerful in the game, and we'll get to it here in this episode, but I think just as much, if not even more powerful here in this one. So really cool episode, a lot of things that stay pretty close to the game, with some stuff that they kind of tweak a little bit, but I'll kind of hold some of that a little bit close, because I think they kind of make some hints throughout about what might happen in kind of at least The Last of Us 2, the second game, and what might happen for season 2. But again, I'll kind of try to keep that spoiler free.
Wonderful. Yeah, this is the episode where we meet back up with Tommy. They finally make it to Wyoming, and the wooden fort that we all built out of Lincoln Logs as kids. You mentioned that there are no infected in this episode, and I would say, Tom, that there are people in this episode that are infected with something more dangerous than whatever the weird fun guy is in the game. These folks are infected with communism, Tom. Communism.
I knew you would say that.
Don't let it infect you or I or us. It should be every man for himself, and whoever's got the most wins. Thank you. That's what this country was founded on. Bunch of hippies living in there. Commune, acting all communist-y. Anyways, man, I hope our editor leaves all that out. I'm sorry, leaves it all in. If he doesn't, communist. All right, let's dive into it after I've gotten fired up and my grandpa rolled around in his grave a little bit. Did we really need to be reminded of the suicide? That's how this episode starts. They're just like, hey, remember how sad it was watching Sam and Henry not make it in the last one? Guess what? The Last of Us is going to make us sad one last time, and here it is, a suicide. Why'd they do that? Did they need to do that? I feel like it was powerful enough for those of us that are not binging it, even though, once again, our name says we are. Why did they remind us, Tom? Explain it to me. Like I'm 5.
All right, you've got a lemonade stand. But I mean, I don't know. The idea that this episode is named Kin, and that's what happened in the last episode where these brothers. I would imagine
he kinned himself in the head.
He can. I'd imagine the main reason is because we have a big time jump here, so they want to just make sure that even though this is 3 months later and kind of goes into winter and the snow country and everything, that the audience still understands that this is kind of a kind of a fresh wound, especially for I was going to say just for Ellie, but I think it is just as much for Joel. So it's obviously a very powerful scene and very hard to watch, and I wasn't thrilled to go back to it at the start of this one, but I think I understand probably why they did.
Yeah, I don't know that the freshest wound is from Ellie and Joel. The freshest wound in that scene is... Never mind. I'll move on. We're in snow country, and like you said, it's 3 months later. We're 12 miles outside of Boston, so they've made it 2 miles since episode 1 or 2, whenever it was they showed us that creek bed. The creeks are getting wider with more water in this episode, which it was beautifully shot, right?
It's just incredible. Like, one of the big things in the game is like you go through seasons. So once like this part in the video game, the Sam and Henry storyline kind of hits, then you do this cut where it jumps forward quite a bit. And I don't know if it says winter or spring, whatever the time frame is on it, but it's just a cool like video game kind of thing to show the characters move not only in time, but through the long journey that they're on, because obviously they are traveling across the country. So it makes sense that they would hit all these different seasons. And my gosh, like all the landscapes, the cinematography, the wide shots, everything just looks so cool. And it just puts these characters in a completely different world. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so in this show, there's 4 seasons. Is that correct?
4 seasons in a movie, yeah.
4 seasons in a movie. What's your favorite season, Tom, of the 4 seasons?
Springtime, man. Flowers blooming, birds singing.
Sure.
I don't know, other things of spring.
Sure. Yeah,
I'm assuming you're a cold-hearted winter guy, right?
I don't like any of them. We stumble upon a cabin where it looks like some people have been living the good life, killing rabbits, I don't know, harvesting snow, chopping wood, just like everyone would want to in this situation. And the bow hunter arrives back to his house, and we get the eye exchange where we know they know something's up, which we know something's up because this is The Last of Us and us are watching.
Well, the way they filmed this, they filmed it with the back to the character. So you almost thought for a second here that this was Joel coming back to the house, because it was a 3 month later they told us that. So they kind of played a little fast and loose to start. But these people are fantastic.
Oh, yeah, no, I never had any doubt that was not Joel. Very different build. So I'm sorry that the show tricked you, but for those of us with sharp eyes and detective skills, you're letting it slip, my friend, since the after party. Old Gumshoe Tom, no longer. Joel is holding this nice family hostage, as Joel is wont to do. Ellie, with her gun in the upstairs loft, also an accomplice.
Who's this little psycho?
Who's this little psycho is a great line. She's like, they're like 1,000, which was great. The husband, which I don't know that we learned these folks' names, but the husband, who's played by Graham Greene, a actor that we've seen in a ton of different stuff. Not more recently, but most popular being what? What was it?
Yeah, I think it's in Last Mohicans, right?
No. Dances with Wolves, Tom. We made this mistake earlier. It's Dances with Wolves he's from.
You started it.
Yeah,
Dances with Wolves,
this is on
Green
me.
Mile, Wind River, I think. And he even makes mention, I think, of Wind River, like they're on the Wind River Reservation. And just a plug for that movie with Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. It's a very difficult movie to watch, but incredibly well done. And I would recommend giving that a go.
Yeah, you can watch it once. If you watch it more than one time, I'm concerned. John Barenthal's in it, and it's another Taylor Sheridan, kind of along the lines of Hell or High Water, which is a wonderful movie that you should watch lots and lots of times. But yeah, Wind River. Watch it at least once, be sad, and never watch it again. A lot of funny dialogue here. You made them soup, which was a great line. She's like, "Yeah,
cold
I made
outside.
them. It's cold outside." Just some
Her
quips
delivery.
from Ellie. Yeah,
Ellie's great, but this lady's delivery is just so great. Just in the chair, all of it is just like eye movement, face movement, very soft and subtle with her words, but great. Like Ellie, talks about the firefly. She's like, "There are firefly people?"
Yes, and then they both start laughing. They're just like, they're having a great time at the expense of Joel and Ellie. They don't seem to be that afraid to be held at gunpoint. They try to warn them off about going west. He's like, the best way is west is east. Don't go west of the river. And Joel's like, listen, I don't know how old you are, but you can't go west by going east. So please explain. But yeah, there's apparently some stuff happening over the river that no one wants any part of.
And of course, the assumption is there's infected or there's something else going on, but we learn later that's not necessarily the case. It's communism.
Yeah.
But I love the line here where she kind of says, like, I don't know, is this something more ominous? And Ellie's like, "You can't scare me." And she looks at Joel and it's like, "Well, I scared him," because he definitely is. Like, he's afraid of what could have happened to his brother, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know how to read into this. I just know that Joel goes outside and has some sort of panic attack. We call those Ted Lasso season 2 attacks. Panic attacks should not be story devices or plot lines, but I guess they're building towards some choices that Joel makes later in this episode. Mm-hmm. You gave your take on this episode, and you didn't ask me mine, which selfish Tom.
I'm like Ellie. I'm selfish in these instances. Where I'm not concerned about you dying. I'm concerned about if you die, then I'm dead. I'm screwed.
Sure. Selfish Tom.
But Julian, what did you think of this episode?
Loved it. No notes. Didn't have any issues. It was all great. No, there were some choices that Joel made in this episode that I thought were uncharacteristic. And I see that they are trying to build towards him being so scared. But I don't know. We'll get to it when we have that moment in the episode. But I thought maybe he had like heart palpitations in terms of we were going to find out he has some sort of like disease. But they're pitching it as more of like a fear panic attack thing as we go on. So I don't know. We'll get to it.
No, you're right. I mean, this is new to the game. And
all right. You don't need to say anything else. Write it down. Jot down the minute. Tom said you're right. Man, is there a sweeter phrase in the English language than you're right? Where's my spouse? Can you say it again if I bring her in here?
I will not.
All right, go ahead. I interrupted you. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead. The second sweetest phrase in the U.S. language. That's what we call it, right? Go ahead. Sorry, Tom.
No, you're good. But this is new to the game. So I'm with you. Like when he first started doing this, I'm like, oh, are they kind of giving him a little bit of like some sort of disease or condition or something that he kind of has? But I think it's just kind of like Ted Lasso did. It's a means to kind of show visibly, I guess, on screen that our character is scared. But I think ultimately he's kind of scared for both, because what we find out later is that he's scared to the point that he cannot protect Ellie, and that he potentially lost his brother. So I think both of these are kind of coming to a head because he seems to realize that he doesn't have it in him to keep her safe.
Right. Yeah, that's both. Yeah, his choices later are both like selfish and unselfish. You could argue both sides, but I don't know. I'll save all my thoughts until we get there. Once again, love this episode, no notes, but when we get to that point, I'm going to have a lot of notes.
Awesome.
They're trying to cross the River of Death, which I'm assuming is its name that it was given before time. They share a flask of... I wanted this to be water. I thought it would have been funny if she was like, it's just water, but that's been done in other shows. But her response to drinking, I don't know, moonshine? Who knows what they have in this world? Although this communist commune has a pretty sweet bar that we find later. So I'm interested to know what alcohol production is going on in this world.
Yeah, they're probably just still in their own. But yeah, I love that Ellie like not only grabs it and says like, yep, still gross, but she kind of like uses the lie that like, I don't know, somebody well older than her would say like, hey, I need it just to get myself warm sitting by a campfire. It was pretty good dialogue.
Right. Knock the chill out of these bones. Yeah, I'm with you, Ellie. As an Arizonan, I need this whiskey to knock the chill out of the air when it's 120 degrees. She asks, I don't know, we're to the point where we're talking about when this is all going to be over, and maybe it's the optimism of a child. I didn't really know how to look into this too much farther than that, but she's like, what are you going to do? What's your retirement plan when this is all over? And Joel's like, I'm going to raise sheep. She's like, okay, that's normal.
Yeah, he wants a ranch, he wants quiet, and he wants somebody that will do what they're told, which is kind of good. But then it kind of cuts back to Ellie, and she starts doing all this stuff about, I've been reading all these books, look into the stars, see the moon. And I love this little bit, too, where she mentions, like, Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, Jim Lovell, but then mentions, like, who I love the most. And before she even says it, Joel answers it, which I thought was brilliant, right? Because it just shows that Joel knows and understands Ellie at this point. Like, because they've been together for so long, knows that her answer is Sally Ride, one of the first kind of female astronauts. And watching some like after stuff about the show, and Neil Druckmann, the guy that made the video game and created it and wrote it, said that this was actually an additional tie-in to the lead actress that did the voice work and motion capture for Ellie, Ashley Johnson.
Okay.
And she's like a huge fan of space. So Neil Druckmann wanted to like incorporate that into the game and have it part of kind of the storyline. So it's kind of cool that they're introducing that here as well.
So Ellie's dream is to be an astronaut. She thinks the world's going to clean itself up after this thing enough to build rockets. Or are we thinking it's like that guy that thought the Earth was flat and he built his own rocket that eventually killed him? Is that like, are we building like backyard rockets? Like those two old men and that lion and Billy Joel Osment? I don't know if that's what that movie was about, but I know there was a lion in it. No. I got one better. It's the one where the guy that's the marshal that chases down Wesley Snipes, he then builds a rocket at his farm, and he's like the farmer space guy, right?
I do not know. Are you talking about Demolition Man? I don't know what
these are all movies. These are all movies. Tommy Lee Jones builds a rocket at his farm and shoots it into space, which is what you do with rockets. You don't shoot them into the ground. That would be crazy.
Like Space Cowboys, all the old guys, the geriatrics go into space.
Yep, that's another space movie. Let's just name space movies for the next hour.
Armageddon. Deep Impact.
You've done it. And that's all of them. Prometheus. Anyways.
All right, well, I have to ask you now. So what is your post-apocalyptic retirement plan?
My post-apocalyptic retirement plan. Number 1, finish Hooked on Phonics. It's been a dream of mine that I've just never had time to do, but I will. My second is I would probably be like the blind guy from the book of Eli, where I would, I guess, have a Bible and cut people with a big machete and take
Eli?
it from place to place. Is that his name in the movie?
Pretty sure.
Oh.
Is there a book of Eli in the Bible?
I'm going to go with no. That doesn't sound right. Although, if you told me every book of the Bible was called Eli, I mean, it's tough to deny. It sounds like a biblical name. But no, I don't think there's a book of Eli there's certainly a character. I think Elisha and Elijah, they both called Eli for short. That was their street name.
I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to know he's blind in that movie, so spoiler alert.
That movie came out 30 years ago. I don't think... I mean,
they've had their chance.
Guess what? I'm going to spoil it too. Denzel Washington's the main character. A booyah all right? Anyways, we got way off track. What's your post-apocalyptic retirement plan? And don't say it's my companion as we take the Braille Bible from place to place. Spoilers.
I'm not sure what I would do. I don't know if I'd survive in a cabin in the middle of the woods. I don't think I have it in me. I think I've proven on the recent camping/hunting trip that we went on that I am not capable of surviving on my own. So I'll just find a nice corner, like one of those clickers, and just absorb myself into a wall.
Tom is not giving himself the credit he deserves. He only cut himself several times before we even got on the trip. But that's neither here nor there. He would certainly be able to take care of himself. He's the only one that spotted the animal we were trying to chase down. So he's got eyes like a hawk, that guy.
Listen, I did my part.
Yep, and then that animal disappeared on us. We have gone off the rails, my friend. During this conversation where we're talking about astronauts and building rockets on farms and Tommy Lee Jones, Ellie starts to question whether or not they are going to be able to put together a vaccine if her blood is the cure. And she then, and this is kind of a sad but touching moment, she confesses that she knew Sam had been infected. She tried to save him with her blood. And, Joel kind of comforts her and he's like, listen, there's a lot that goes into a vaccine. I'm not going to go into anything more about vaccines because we'll get that little warning label on Spotify about getting educated, but it is what it is.
He says specifically that Marlene is smart enough and understands. So he trusts Marlene and said, if it can be done, then, she would know about it. So gives her a little bit of hope here.
Sure. We discuss who's going to take first watch, second watch, third watch, which I believe was a show on NBC. And I don't know why he thinks he can stay up all night and all day, but Joel's like, listen, I'll take both watches. And she's like, yeah, you have 2 wrists, but anyways, what doesn't make any sense is you can't stay up all night and all day and like function like a normal human being. So he inevitably falls asleep, and she takes second watch, and you have this wonderful moment where he wakes up, and he's like, give me the gun. She's like, I took second watch. You fell asleep on me. I'm a natural. She's like, I checked my 6. I went 4 clicks out. I tasted the wind. I went and looked at the droppings on the ground, found out where the buffalo herd was by tasting it. Oh, just like that one movie, Almost Heroes. And she's a natural at standing watch, right?
Well, yeah. And I think it mirrors kind of what, Joel falling asleep, saying he would take both watches, almost mirrors the idea that she was supposed to stay awake, I think, when she promised Sam that she would. And Joel kind of did the same thing here. He fell asleep when he said he was going to take both. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But we do get a little bit of like Joel mumbling in his sleep, which Ellie actually mentioned in the very first episode when they first met, when he's kind of taking a nap on the couch. But if you listen to it, or I think you have the subtitles on, he's like mumbling to himself, it's supposed to be me, or it was supposed to be me. Which, again, like, it's heart-wrenching watching it a second time, because that's him putting the blame on himself. Not just Sarah, not just Tess, but, the other people that he's lost in his life, and, feels that he let them down.
Interesting. I played it backwards to see what it said backwards, which was pure
Eva
gibberish. So, yeah. Did you really just do that? Did you, off the cup, do that backwards?
No, Ivan Netniaj is join the Navy backwards.
Oh, that's right.
Simpsons.
From, LT Smash. Lieutenant LT Smash. That's right. I gotcha. All right. Good for you. I thought you had some weird ability. You always have weird talents, Tom, and I thought that was another weird talent. We are then at the river, and does he shoot a round off just to see if people show up? There's like a weird gunshot, and I was like, I thought maybe he was hunting, but he instead is just cranking off rounds over rivers, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, but whatever.
Yeah, it seemed like a bold play. I don't know if he's looking for infected, because it didn't say infected, so I'm assuming he's looking more for sheep, I guess, around the area. Or not sheep, sorry. I got sheep farm on the mind.
You got sheep on the brain.
Looking for raiders and other guys like that. So, I mean, I guess they were talked up so much about this river being dangerous that he's just trying to spook something up. Definitely spook those birds.
Sure. Maybe he shot the river. He was like, take that, river of death. And Ellie's like, all right, you need to sleep more. I'll take both watches. She's like, teach me how to hunt. He's like, I think you'd be fine with the shooting. You proved it when you shot that one kid in the face, but you'll probably have trouble with the dressing. And they have a discussion of why calling it dressing after you down an animal, or like field dressing, I guess is what they're getting at.
She's got a very fair point. I mean, it is undressing from the inside, so I'm with her.
Yep. I don't know where that comes from, but we run into a dam that is then cause for puns. And I do appreciate the callback to the joke book, whatever that guy's name is. Will Livingston, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
You're no Will Livingston.
But then he does the same little bit about, like, it's electricity. She kind of looks up at him like, are you going to explain how this all works? He's like, I don't have a clue.
Yeah,
which is
don't
great.
ask. Yeah.
It's like the siphon. But this is kind of a call to the video games, because this is where you actually meet and run into Tommy and Maria in the games. They're the ones that are kind of fixing the dam. So it's a little bit earlier in the kind of timeline, if you will.
Sure. I'll go in and bleep out all the times we've said damn, because this is a podcast for children, all right? And they shouldn't know how water is held back, all right? It's held back by a bleep, and yeah, that'll confuse some. Good luck, children. This is then where, speaking of good luck, this is where they're caught by the Yellowstone ranchers. Costner/Dutton rides up, and old Rip is there, looking all handsome. And they don't use one of those red or green devices. They use a dog to check whether or not he senses the virus. And I could have took this as like this was a bulk, right? Dogs can't actually tell. Are they're trying to get them to confess? Is that what's happening here, or can dogs actually smell infected?
No, they can, and then they've proven it in the series. So in the first episode, you remember where they had that dog that was kind of sensing the old lady, was like staring at her while she was like sitting on the couch and kind of mid-turn. So I thought
that's because he was upset she didn't make chocolate chip cookies. She made some oatmeal raisin garbage, and that's why he ultimately ate her.
But I do like that because it's in world. It's not just kind of something they made up here because they didn't have the technology at their hands. So I thought it was kind of cool. And I'll just say, like, clearly this dog is a very, very good boy, but it's terrible at its job.
Good boy, terrible at job. Yes, that's right. That's what you'd put on his little dog collar. Sure.
Can't be more clear. Very good boy.
Very good boy. The people all have bandanas like bandits, and they all have horses like bandits, and they take them to the Lincoln Log Fortress.
Like bandits.
And that's where we find Tommy. Now, this is going to get confusing because this character's name is Tommy, and your name is Tommy. So I think we should establish that we will call you Stupid. And then when we refer to the character in the show, we'll call him Tommy. So You can either be Tommy 2 or Stupid. I'll let you choose.
I'll take Stupid. I'll wear it like a badge of honor. Like the Scarlet S, man, but it stands for Stupid.
That's the best joke I've ever written. I wrote that several days ago, and I've been waiting to use it until now. Wonderful.
I love this meeting of them, right? Like, he gets this great big bear hug, fantastic, and like the way Joel just like screams his name, and then he kind of comes out, so great. And then I think Joel's first line to him is like, "I came here to save you," which is obviously hilarious, right? Because I think even Neil Druckmann said like he doesn't need saving in this instance, right? Like Tommy is clearly thriving, but Joel just can't help himself. Like he is, and still feels that he is his little brother's protector.
Sure. No, that's a great point, Stupid. I can't do it, Tom. I can't do it. It feels so mean. I love you too much, buddy. All right.
It's funny.
All right. I'm going to let it go. I can't do it. All right. Ellie, and we have this weird thing where, like, Ellie, I guess, feels left out. They cut to her, and she's making the sad Ellie face, which I guess, the thought is she thinks she's going to lose Joel to his real family. Like, she's all he's had for a while, and she's gotten his attention, and now she feels like it's going towards Tommy. Am I touching
I think so.
something?
I think you are Stupid.
No, doesn't work.
Okay.
No, there's no Julian in this show. There's no Julian in any shows. It doesn't.
No, but I think it does. This is kind of like Ellie seeing Joel like embrace real family, and she doesn't feel, or at least Joel hasn't expressed, even though Joel probably does feel or see Ellie as kind of like a daughter and is a father figure to her, hasn't admitted it or anything yet. So she's just kind of in a tough spot and doesn't know how to feel.
Sure. We get the must-have scene where they're eating their best meal of their lives, where they're all just scarfing down food. And Ellie is some kind of something at this lunch, brunch, whatever it is. She's like yelling at people. It was off the rails.
Yeah, this is great. Like, again, just both her and Joel just shoveling food into their mouths. She yells at this other girl kind of in the background looking at her. So she's clearly not doing a great job of making new friends. And I'm not going to say much about this, but this scene specifically, and like her yelling at this girl and everything, this is kind of an Easter egg scene for those who have played the second game. So I'm not going to say kind of much about it, but for those interested, folks that have played the second game probably already know what this reference is, but I don't want to go too far into it. So I'm sorry if that's very cryptic, but I just want to mention it here because I think it's a brilliant Easter egg placed by both Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann here.
No, you don't have to apologize. You can just rub it in our dumb faces that we haven't played the game. That's fine, Tom.
Play the game, everybody.
You and all of your second game friends, those of us that can't even beat the first one. I haven't even gotten past the scene where you stretch the screen out to fit your television. It's so difficult.
You're still wandering up and down the stairs as Sarah.
Yes.
Can't figure out where the door is.
That's exactly right. I want my gun back, which is a great line from Ellie. Ellie's like, she's like, I don't know, spoiled child, off the rails. I want my gun back. What's wrong with yelling at people? She's just like trying to pick a fight. And it's, I guess, kind of a lash out because she feels like she's going to lose Joel and Tommy. And these people are essentially taking Joel from her, I guess, is what's happening.
Well, and there's no like Emily Post in her world, right? Like she doesn't really know all these like manners and mannerisms you're probably supposed to have. Like Joel was very respectful and was calling Maria ma'am and that kind of stuff. And even like I think at one point said like, hey, mind your manners. But she does not really understand that in this world.
I'm sorry. Let's backtrack a little bit. There's no who in her world. Emily Post? Who's Emily Post, Thomas?
Emily Post? You don't know who Emily Post is?
I don't know who Emily Post is, but we can say her name several more times, Tom. Who is Emily Post?
She's like the book on etiquette. So like anything about like no elbows on the table, which forks go in what spot. I don't know. I haven't read it. Clearly, I haven't read it. I don't have great manners. But she's a very famous etiquette-ologist or whatever they are.
Interesting. I learned all my manners from the Old Testament. That's the only book I need. Anyways, Maria, we find, is in some way related to Tommy from the show, not Tommy from the podcast. And the actress that is playing Maria is Rutina Wellesley. And I clocked her immediately because I watched like a season and a half of True Blood, but me and my wife could not get past season 2 because I kept doing impressions of Bill the Vampire, and it made my wife angry. And instead of getting divorced, we decided to stop watching the show.
Wise choice.
So... but no, she's great. I wish she was in more things. I don't know that I've seen her in a ton other than this and that.
No, I haven't either. And she's got a pretty small role on the greater schemes of this episode, but she is fantastic. I loved her. But I love this little bit too, where Tommy's like mentioning the idea of like a bad reputation doesn't mean you're bad. And then Maria's response is not always, and just stares daggers at Joel, which is just such a great little bit because she feels she already knows Joel and is judging him based off of what Tommy has told him or her about him. So it's a great little line to already establish that kind of, I don't know, tension between them.
Yes, it is. And we have this moment where the marriage is announced and...
Congratulations.
Ellie likes congratulations, and Joel does not say congratulations. And I think this is a pretty strong establishment that Joel is very racist, right? Is that what we're learning about Joel in this moment? No,
I don't
a real
think
tough
so.
time to say congrats.
No, I don't think so. I don't
No?
think so. I think
Okay.
Joel's just a little bit taken aback here.
Tommy, on record, Joel from The Last of Us, super racist. Write it down. Let's all get him canceled. No, I think this is him realize like his brother has moved on and his brother, has found happiness and companionship. And this is going to complicate Joel like taking his brother away from the Lincoln Log Fort, I think, is what's happening, right?
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
They start walking the Lincoln Log town, and Maria's kind of giving them the tour with Tommy. They're like, it's a lovely little town. You can't tell anyone about it because there's 300 of us, and we're all communists. And I like that Tommy finds out that this is communism for the first time. He's like, well, we're not communists. And she's like, yeah, this is literally a commune. And he's like, oh. And Joel kind of gives him a look like, yeah. How's it feel to be a communist? You didn't even know. And I think this is playing in towards like the Tommy being a joiner. Like he just kind of joins and he doesn't really think about it. And I don't know. Out of all the things in the show, this was the most unbelievable part of the show to me, that a group of 300 people could live in perfect harmony and share everything. I've got a family of 4 and we fight over ice cream. So I don't really know that this is ever going to happen, but God bless them. I hope it works out.
It is interesting, like the idea of this, and certainly from Tommy's perspective, not even really knowing or thinking about it. But I think in general, like certainly Americans and certainly you, like the word communism, you're just told and taught you need to hate it. But there are certain aspects that are good in a small civilization like this, a small community that shares with the resources that they get. It works. It doesn't work on the larger scale, which I think we get a little bit later conversation when Joel and Ellie are kind of talking when they hit the road. But it was an interesting kind of realization that we get. But I do want to ask, so as they're doing the little walk and talk and learning about the town, there's a little bit that Tommy talks about, like the rifle and how he could shoot somebody from a mile away or whatever it is. Now, there was a lot of rifle talk, and I want to go ahead and head to Julian's rifle corner, since I know you are an avid gunsman. There were some words thrown around here that I didn't know what they meant, and I would like to ask you. He says, still has his 700. What's a 700, Julian?
I believe it's a model. I think a Remington 700 is the model that he'd be talking about. It's just like a hunting rifle.
Okay, fair. Then he mentions a variable power scope. What's that?
I assume variable power scope means it's a scope where you can adjust how much you zoom in and out. And Julian's Rifle Corner is unassailable, so do not at me or send me emails. Gun people are super weird about this stuff, and I don't want to be corrected. I don't care. I do not care. So Julian's Rifle Corner is, consider it my Lincoln Log Fortress. None of you are allowed in. I only put information out when I want to, and if it's wrong, I don't care. Next question, Tom.
Thank you for that clarification. Last one. He says sub MOA. What is that?
MOA stands for minute of angle. It's like how you establish the accuracy of a rifle. So like sub MOA at a certain distance would be you could put a group of shots within like a square inch. Is essentially what he's saying. He's using fancy words to explain how accurate he is, and it's funny because Joel calls him out later about it all being BS, which I thought was very funny.
He impressed Ellie. Ellie was super excited. It's like, can you teach me? So it definitely worked on her.
It worked on me too. I mean, I'm still thinking about it. And that has been Julian's Rifle Corner. Do not email me at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. I answer a lot of the emails. Tom answers them too. Julian's Rifle Corner, no questions will be answered or read. That's our official stance. Thank you.
But then I think ultimately at the end of the sequence, Maria allows Joel and Tommy to kind of have a little one-on-one, little family time. And it's interesting here too, where you see Ellie kind of get scared. She like says, Joel, like don't leave me alone. Like I'm still, frightened to be with these people, even though everything seems nice here in this community. I don't want to be left alone here without you.
Listen, as a viewer, I kept expecting things to go weird in the town. I kept expecting them to, someone come in the middle of the night and grab them, someone to show up when they're trying to leave. This world just kind of bakes in a level of paranoia that everyone is kind of out to get everyone. So, it's lovely that these 300 people have found harmony together, but when the next Lincoln Fortress that's bigger than them comes and takes all their stuff, that's when they'll be sad. Anyways, the brothers toast at the bar. Once again, beautiful bar, lots of well-stocked alcohol, so everyone's living pretty well here. And Joel's like, you got Christmas trees and bacon. It's pretty decent setup. That's all. That's all a man needs, or woman needs. Speaking of woman, I didn't understand this part, because Tommy's like, how's Tess? And he's like, oh, she's fine. She's breathing. She's very much alive. And Tommy's like, you kept saying that, like doubling down that she was still. He's like, yep, she's still on this earth. Still eyes open, can see things, conscious.
Still has that explosive personality.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Very good. She's a real firecracker, a real grenade. She's dead. I didn't understand why he was I guess, is he feeling out whether or not he can trust Tommy? Is that what's happening here?
I think it is, right? Like, he doesn't understand. Like, we get that look in town talking about, like, not being on comms. He gets that idea that Tommy was holding some stuff back maybe a little bit. And I think initially he's just trying to keep things relatively uncomplicated. And he doesn't want to admit, I guess, at this point to Tommy that he's scared. So he's kind of, like, taking all these things. And I think the other idea, too, is, like, if he says Tess is dead, then he'd have to explain himself and more of what's going on with Ellie, because he even says that at one point too. Oh, Ellie's just the daughter of some bigwig firefly that I've got to transport from A to B.
Sure. Yeah, it's never good when communist brothers comrades, I think they call each other, are keeping secrets. If it's one thing that House of Animals book taught me, it's that you can't keep secret from your comrades.
And it's one thing that the exotic dancer from The Office told me is secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
That's profound. Profound. What a great character. You may have already talked about it, and I may just not have been listening, but this is kind of where we find out that Maria kept Joel off the radio and kept Tommy off the radio and from messaging Joel. And Tommy's like, listen, we're just trying to keep the wrong people from finding out that we're here. And Joel's like, am I the wrong people? And this is a family meeting, so inevitably there's going to be some yelling and people getting upset. We find out that they murdered people, innocent people, to survive, which I think we kind of knew, I think it's a little bit different when they both have to look each other in the eye and admit to what they did, but are there any rules in this world? There shouldn't be. I mean, you should just be able to survive,
Well, and Tommy's the one that admits it. Like, Joel just says we did things to survive. And Tommy's like, no, we didn't just do things. Like, we murdered people to stay alive. And, his points are very poignant here. It's like, there were other ways to survive. And that's what he's proving now. But he just said, like, we weren't any good at them. So they did what they could because that was their skill set. But now that he's kind of found a better way, he's moving towards that direction. And at this point, I don't think Tommy kind of thinks that Joel is still that guy and doesn't know that he's changed.
Sure. Tommy then plays the trump card. And once again, Tommy from the show, not Tommy from the podcast. Tommy plays the trump card where he's like, guess what? I can't really do a whole lot because I've got a baby on the way. And Joel gives them the exact reaction that every brother wants when they reveal they're going to have a kid. He's like, well, we'll see how that works out for you. And Tommy calls him out, which is wonderful. He's like, that's all you have to say? That was rough. That was real rough.
Well, and even I think the way that Tommy says it, like, he tells him, like, I know that time might have stopped for you, but it doesn't do that for me. And again, that just is reminiscent of the watch that Joel has on his hand. He keeps the broken watch that stopped when Sarah died. It's a heartbreaking scene. And I think right now, Joel is so cold because Tommy is going to have something that he can't, which is being a father. And It just takes Joel completely by surprise, and he doesn't know how to react outside of just being cold to his brother.
Yes, this was all very sad and deep. And does he leave here and he has another panic attack? Is that what happens? Does he walk out?
He walks out, kind of sees the Times Square. I think people are either messing with the Christmas tree or all just kind of hanging out.
Watching
but he gets
the ball
a glimpse.
Drop. Yep. And Regis is out there. And
Did I say Times Square? I meant Town Square.
No, you said Town Square, but I wanted it to be Times Square, the most happening place on Christmas.
But he kind of gets a glimpse, like he knows Sarah's gone, but this is all just kind of coming to a head, and he sees the back of a woman that has a very similar hairstyle to Sarah, which is very kind of recognizable, and then even sees like a little girl coming up to her that has the same hair. So like Joel is kind of like seeing what this life could have been, where he could have been a grandfather and could have seen Sarah grow up, but it just kind of hits him here, and his kicker can't take it.
Ticker can't take it. That is a great line. We cut to the house that Ellie is now in. She's out of the shower and she finds what I would like to refer to as a pee funnel that someone has given her. Am I touching something?
Well, now we've had Julian's rifle corner. We're now going to go to Tom's menstruation corner, and I'm going to tell you all about Diva Cups. Are you ready?
No, sweet Lord, I am not ready. You can't do this. You have to put this stuff on the outline, so I'm warned. I shan't be blindsided. What's
Listen,
about
you
to
can
happen?
ask me all the questions, and feel free to reach out because I know nothing. My wife brought this up, but I do like the idea that this show, deals with this, women's menstruation in these post-apocalyptic worlds, because it's always just thrown away like it's no big deal. But women still have to deal with this kind of stuff, so kind of putting this on screen, I think, is kind of cool.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
I know you have different thoughts.
No, I obviously think it's super cool, and I have always been pro more of it because I do not at all feel uncomfortable in this moment. That was a Freudian slip where I said what I said. But moving on.
And this has been Tom's menstruation corner.
From Tom's corner to... She gets dressed. She's got all these sweet, cool clothes, and she goes across the street. And Maria's super cool. I like Maria a lot. Maria gives her a haircut. I do appreciate the talk about the jacket. She's like, it's really purple. And she's, what did she say? Like plum or eggplant, something like that?
Yeah.
She cuts her hair. I do like how Maria's super cool, but then she kind of turns into, hey, can you trust Joel? Which I'm like, I don't know. Joel has helped Ellie survive for the last 4 months. I don't know. You can't really turn her with a haircut and a jacket, but Maria doesn't know Ellie well enough. So we find out that Maria had a son, and this is chalkboarded over the fireplace. And this is then where Ellie finds out about Sarah, right? Because Joel had never mentioned Sarah, and this has not been brought up to her previously, correct?
No, absolutely not. And it was never told specifically in the game. Like, Ellie does kind of find out, which leads to their kind of scene a little bit later where Ellie kind of confronts Joel about it. But this is a really cool kind of addition from the game because Ellie does go off with Maria, but you have no idea what their conversations are because you're obviously always playing as the character of Joel. So I like this little extra bit. But yeah, Maria's kind of poking and prodding because she kind of knows from Tommy the kind of man that Joel is. And Ellie is just going to bat for him. Like, do you know what he did? Like, he killed innocent people. It's like, well, he doesn't kill innocent people anymore, or the innocent ones. So, trying to justify it here. But I think it's a poignant conversation that's something we should kind of keep in mind of Ellie still going to bat for Joel even after everything that he's done.
Right. Maria's ultimate lesson is just be careful who you can trust. And we then cut to community movie theater time, and I, for the life of me, had no idea what movie this was. I don't think I've ever seen it. I didn't look it up. What movie is this, Tom?
This is The Goodbye Girl. It's a 1977 movie with Richard Dreyfuss. It was apparently one of their earliest romantic comedies. And I think, obviously this is past our time, but I think some of the storylines kind of parallel what's kind of going on through our characters in this sequence and stuff. But I don't know enough about it to speak well to it. But I do appreciate that this is a community that still appreciates the arts too, right? They're still watching movies, they're gathering together as opposed to everything just being survival, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know. They're watching a movie called The Goodbye Girl. Are we appreciating the arts? It's not like they've got a bunch of Monets out and they're all wandering around with glasses of wine going,
Richard Dreyfuss is a national treasure. How dare you?
Richard Dreyfuss is? I'm pretty sure Richard Dreyfuss is well known as being difficult, and that's why no one wanted to work with him after a while. But sorry that Richard Dreyfuss is catching strays on this podcast. I loved him in Insert Richard. Mr. Holland's Opus. That's the best I can do. And he's kind of a jerk in that, if we're being honest. But
yeah, he's playing himself.
He writes that sweet opus. Joel gets some new boots, which Tommy brings him, because Joel is in the process of resoling his boots. We see him duct taping them at one point, but Tommy shows up with new boots. Tommy, once again from the show, not the podcast, apologizes. The Tommy from the podcast would never apologize.
Never.
Joel tells Tommy, he just starts spilling. He's like, hey, Ellie's immune. I've seen it. I've seen her bit like 12 times. Nothing ever happens to her. I bit her once. She didn't even turn human. He's like, I like Tommy pulls it up. He's like, tell me the whole story. And so they have brother story time. And this is while we see Ellie has left the movie because she's not a Richard Dreyfuss fan. She just knows that he's a real jerk. And she wanders the streets looking for Joel. And Joel is, confessing how poorly he's like feeling, the heart palpitations, the fear. And he's like laying it out to his brother as to why he needs his help.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. This continues, like Joel continues to focus only on his failures and admitting that he's afraid here, but not really. And I think a lot of people do this. We always focus on the things that we didn't do, as opposed to the things that he has done to keep Ellie alive and to get Ellie to this point. So it's very tough, and it's hard to see somebody be so critical and hard on themselves because so much of what has happened is not directly Joel's fault.
Tom, I appreciate that you revealed enough about yourself that you are saying you focus mainly on your failures. I do want to point out there is a certain personality in the world that only focuses on what they did right and can't evaluate what they've done poorly. And those people are obnoxious. While maybe mentally healthy, they are super obnoxious. I think there's a nice balance, you gotta evaluate what you've done wrong so that you can do better. But at the same time, you're right. It's good to reflect on the things that you have accomplished and done well. This has been Ted Lasso Corner. Be positive, folks. Believe.
Not judgmental.
Yes, that's exactly right. Unless it's towards communism, because I know Ted Lasso's not a communist. Despite his mustache, not a communist. Joel's explaining, he's like, listen, Tommy, you need to take Ellie. You said he does kind of trap him here. He's like, hey, how is the route to where the Fireflies are in Colorado? And Tommy's like, easy, cake. I could do it in my sleep. And Joel's like, well, guess what, buddy? I need you to sleepwalk Ellie over there because I can't do it. He really walked him into that one.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, listen, you can't tell anyone about Ellie. You need to take her. It's the last thing I'll ever ask, mainly because you'll probably die doing it. I think, listen, as an older brother, and I'm a terrible older brother. My brother will tell you that. All my brothers, even my older ones will tell you that. Terrible brother. I think it's very weird to put all the responsibility on Tommy. Like, this is where, like, kind of the uncharacteristic part of Joel... And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm giving him more credit. I guess he didn't want to take Ellie in the first place. Tess kind of forced him. Tess kind of pushed him along. But, like, there's for lack of a better word, cowardice is the wrong word. But there is he's making a comfort-based decision here where it's going to be too much for him. So he's putting it on his little brother. And I did not like this. I did not... I don't know. Am I being unreasonable here? Was this out of character? And maybe it's different for you because you know how this all goes. But I don't know. Was this a choice in the game? Press square and Tommy has to take her. Press triangle and Joel has to go.
I'm with you. I think it's a very, very fair point. Like Joel's kind of trying to justify leaving this kid. And I think from Joel's perspective, he knows how much he was destroyed when Sarah was killed. And now at this point, Joel sees Ellie as a daughter, as like almost a new replacement daughter. And like, well, sorry, replacement's a terrible word for that, but a surrogate.
No,
for
I understood what you meant. It's a great term. I like it.
And he just can't bring himself to deal with that pain again of having to lose somebody else this close that he loves. I think it's tough. And in the games, I think there's a little bit greater of like an age difference too, where Tommy's like a little bit younger and would be a better suit to take Ellie and finish this journey than it would be for him. But I'm with you, and I think it's a fair point to bring up.
after having this conversation where I believe Tommy agrees to doing it, he goes, Joel goes and finds Ellie reading a journal.
I interrupt you real quick. So before we get into this scene, so this is probably one of the most famous scenes from the game. And the way they shoot this scene is nearly identical to the game. There's like a few tweaks to dialogue here and there, but Ellie sitting on the windowsill reading the journal, the wallpaper in the background, again, the dialogue, this is all ripped straightly from the game. And it was Craig Mazin's idea because of how much this scene sat with him as a gamer and playing the game. He wanted to try to keep this as close to the original version that Neil Druckmann had created. So go ahead, lay us on us.
Got it. She's reading a journal. She's like, is this what people cared about? The mall and clothes? And we find out that she overheard the conversation between Joel and Tommy, and she confronts Joel about it. And she's like, what are you so afraid of? I'm not her. I'm not Sarah. I'm sorry about her, but I'm not her. Everyone's left me but you. And I'm killing this scene right now. I don't know why I was not brought on to act this out, but it's a very touching. Ellie does a great job. The actress does a great job. I thought this was extremely harsh from Joel. He's like, you're not my daughter. We're going to go our separate ways. Like, to your point, if he's feeling, you mentioned he feels like she's a replacement daughter. He does the exact opposite here. In terms of he pushes her away, which I didn't understand.
To me, no, that's very fair. I think to me, what really took Joel back is the mention of Sarah's name, right? Because he hasn't heard Sarah's name in 20 years. So when he hears Sarah, it just takes him completely off guard. And it's kind of the interesting dichotomy between these two characters where, and I think Craig Mazin said it, Joel makes Ellie feel less afraid, where Ellie makes Joel feel more afraid. Which is just heart-wrenching then to watch this scene kind of play through with that in mind. And in the game, the sequence ends with some action sequence, right? There's some raiders coming at the door and you have to fight them off. But in the show here, you have to kind of live with this scene and you have to see how Joel kind of reacts to this and kind of takes it in, because he goes back to his room and he probably is having second thoughts, and we even have some flashback sequences where he sees Sarah and Christmas and what life could have been potentially, and he's just trying to figure out kind of how to cope with it. And Joel's first reaction, just like he did with his brother earlier, is to be defensive and standoffish and almost run away.
Sure. Two things I would like to say to that. One, you don't think in 20 years they run into a single person who's also named Sarah, and then the person's like, hey, my name's Sarah, and Joel gets super misty-eyed and Desperado plays in the background, and Ellie's like, Joel, and there's 3 minutes of him just looking off in the middle distance. The second thing is, do you think Joel is afraid because in this town he's surrounded by communists? And that's been Julian's Communist Corner. Join me next time where we say the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's great. I do have to ask, so from me watching this scene, I got incredibly emotional, a lot more emotional than I thought I would, in all honesty, watching this, because I did recently replay the game and replay this part, and it was semi-emotional, I think, replaying this, but watching this be acted out, I'm interested from your perspective and what you know from the characters thus far. Did this kind of get kind of emotional, and did you kind of really kind of sense this, or was it just kind of another sequence for you?
No, unfortunately, I didn't buy Joel's reaction. This felt like a story trying to force these two apart for for storyline or plot. I just didn't understand, and I still kind of don't, why he's no, we're going our separate ways. Once again, this is one of those moments in a show where it's you two should say 4 more sentences to each other and we may not end on bad terms. He should explain how he's feeling and why he's doing this. It's hey, Tommy's younger than me, he's in better health, my chest hurts, my arm's numb, it constantly tastes like aluminum in my mouth. Like, I'm not the guy to take you there, but my brother will keep you safe. Like, I feel like there's some things. Instead, he like lashes out with, "You're not my daughter. We need to go our separate ways. You're going in the morning." Like, I don't know.
I think he did that though, right? Like that was all the preface to it. He tried to, reason and justify why Tommy is the better person to take you on this journey. But none of that matters to Ellie, right? Like she doesn't trust Tommy. She doesn't know him, even though he is a brother, and probably in the back of her mind knows that Tommy will do what his brother says and understands it. But Ellie is still so incredibly afraid of losing seemingly the only person that has cared for him or her in a very long time.
Sure. I don't know. I also was like, okay, well, if Tommy's going, Joel can go too. 3 people on a horse, that's not unheard of. The person in the middle's always warm, and you just rotate out. Not hard. I don't know.
There's a little bit more in the game where like Tommy he says he'll go, but he's kind of reluctant, and Maria gets incredibly like upset about it because Maria finds out, and Joel kind of comes in, which he does here in a bit, where he ultimately decides that he will stay with Ellie and kind of say, Tommy, hey, you can stay here, which is, from Joel's perspective, what he should be doing as a brother anyways, and not putting his brother into more harm, but to try to keep him protected now that he's got a family.
I agree. Yeah, the way this show is done, I constantly try and guess where it's going, but I was surprised Tommy didn't tell Maria what was happening. I was surprised Maria wasn't there with a bunch of dudes with guns in the morning. Like, there were a number of ways this could have gone. I did appreciate how it played out, though. Tommy comes and gets Ellie in the morning. She's already got her JanSport packed up. Joel's at the horses, and he's like, listen, I came here to steal a horse 30 minutes ago, and I just couldn't do it. And I do like how this plays out. He's like, you deserve a choice. And she's like, let's go. And she throws the backpack to him. It's just like perfect Ellie. Like, I'm not going to let you finish your sentence. There's no choice to be made here. I want you. And I thought that was great. And so Joel and Tommy from the show, not the podcast, hug. I don't know how I feel about how casually Tommy gives up this Remington 700. But
he's not giving it up, man.
Fine.
Joel asks specifically, hey, can I borrow this? So he'll bring it back.
Yeah, this is a real communist move, borrowing each other's guns.
Can we please head back to Julian's rifle quarter? Because once they get their guns and they hit the road, what do we got? We got some rifle practice. Tell me about this, Julian.
Yeah, but I think I'm with you. I'd like this to be called Julian's menstruation rifle corner. I think that's a good roundabout way, just so we're all comfortable with saying that word repeatedly, because Lord knows I am. But yeah,
I love how comfortable it makes you. It's great.
We get some rifle practice going on. It's pretty funny because she does the thing that anyone that shoots for the first time or can't quite get it, they blame the instrument, they blame the tool, and she's like, this rifle, something's wrong with it, it's not working. And then he gives her some advice about like letting a breath in or holding it and all these things, and she's like, it doesn't work, something's wrong. And then he takes it, and I thought they were going to make him miss and then him go, you are right, this there is something wrong with this rifle. Like, that to me would have been funny, but to their credit, he hits, and it's a very funny. They don't even like the way they shoot it. You'd think they would show the target like blow up. That's how most or like get hit, but they just focus on the characters because that's what they care about. Like, and her reaction. She's like, "You son of," or whatever she says. She's so upset that he made it work. It was great.
Yeah. But I think the creator of the show, Craig Mazin, kind of talks about the idea that like 9 times out of 10, Joel misses, or at least kind of comes close. But on this specific instance, like, he hits the bullseye, like perfect, right in the middle. And it's funny how, this is almost kind of showing his like super dad powers, where, instinctively dads have that thing of kind of being superheroes to their kids. And, this is kind of Joel kind of showing off and almost making Ellie proud of him. And it kind of goes both ways. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was interested in how much ammo is in this world, because every time you squeeze a trigger in our world, it's like $2. And so in this world, I've got to think it's like 400 gallons of gasoline to get one round, but it is what it is. We have Yeah, or water. We have this. Yes, if you live in a place without water. Good one, Thomas. We have this lovely scene where they're riding on the horse, and she's kind of like asking him about the world before. And he's like, she's like, you were in construction? And he's like, yeah, we were contractors. He's like, everyone loves contractors, which I think is funny because in everyone else's world, it's like, yeah, the contractor was supposed to come out and do this, didn't show, said he'd be back in a week. Like, I just thought this was a funny bit that not that there's anything against contractors, they're lovely people, but I just, the smirk he has when he says everybody loves contractors was funny.
Well, of course, right, because Joel's playing it off like a joke, but Ellie is none the wiser, so she just thinks it's like the coolest thing, and then gives him like the nickname, the Contractor, which I'm assuming has got to be a Liam Neeson movie, right? Like,
100%.
I'm the Contractor. I have a particular set of skills and it involves hammer and nails.
Yes, that's right. That is definitely it. And that was a great Irish accent you just did there. Very good, Tom. We go into some explaining of football, which is just wonderful.
This is actually kind of interesting too. So it's funny that they're just talking about football, but I think there is a deeper meaning here in the idea of Ellie ending it saying you're moving in one direction, but then Joel has to add, yeah, but violently. And it's very much what their journey is, right? Like they're moving from one end of the country to the other, and they're doing it violently. So the idea of this small little seemingly kind of throwaway story bit of just explaining the old world has a tie into the journey that they're on.
Yep, this game is very much just like a football game. I'm sorry, this show is very much like a football game. I'm assuming the video game is much like a football game too.
Yeah, in the video game, you can you pick up footballs on the ground, and then you can duct tape knives to them, and you throw them at zombies' heads.
Yes, that's very good. What was the one where they duct tape stuff to? Oh, that's in Three Kings, where they duct tape like C4 to Nerf footballs. They throw it in the air and shoot it so it explodes. Oh man, that movie's great too. Joel's explaining college. He's like, I don't know, it's a bunch of young idiots running around trying to find themselves. That's great. She's like, oh, what'd you want to be? He's like, I wanted to be a singer, which I thought was very funny.
This is also, I was going to say, this is another cool bit too, where again, the creator of the video games wants to try to tie the main actor that did the voice and motion capture for Joel. His name is Troy Baker, and he's kind of an avid musician and loves music and loves to sing. So Druckmann, again, trying to incorporate the real life actors into the characters in the game is pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. We see some Jumanji monkeys running around doing Jumanji things. He's like, first time seeing a monkey. She's like, yep. And it's funny to see her like tick off things that other people would, find normal, but she's seeing for the first time.
Yep.
The biomedical station has the Firefly sign on it. I don't really understand. Like, are they being subtle? Like, doesn't everyone know what the Fireflies are? Just write Fireflies. What's going on here? What do we have to... Who's running around with a stencil and spray paint? Like, is that easier?
I haven't thought about that. I think in the next sequence where they actually walk into like the hospital, there's like another stenciled thing in the background, but it's not straight, it's crooked. So I just imagine the guy like doing like hundreds of these across. He's like, you know what, I'm sick and tired of everybody telling me to go up and down with these.
Yeah.
I'm going sideways.
Yeah. Did he ever do it? And he's like, that one doesn't look right. And he like spray painted over it, and then he like spray painted it again. Then they drew a smiley face on it.
It's actually Banksy.
Banksy, that's true. Yes,
Banksy
Banksy survived in this world. He probably could because no one knows who he is. But there's no guards. They're like, something's fishy. It's quiet. It's too quiet. Ellie's like, gun? Yeah, gun. This is great. And it looks like the Fireflies have cleared out of the old college. There's just monkeys and trash and maps. Lots of maps being very subtle about, hey, we've gone to Salt Lake City. We are here.
Yes. Yeah, all the little pins kind of saying, like, they were trying to do something here. It didn't work out. So they're packing up their stuff, and they're going to Salt Lake City. And I think you even see a little Post-it note on there saying St. Mary's Hospital. So we'll see if they head in that direction.
Classic St. Mary's Hospital. Some raiders show up outside. They try to go out the back. One shows up. I'm really over. Listen, I'm over people cracking necks in shows. It's like, I'm pretty sure it's like scientifically impossible, but it seems to be a very lazy way. Like, Joel's not a superhero. He's a contractor, the contractor. Like, how is he cracking grown men's necks? Like, I don't know. This was just choke him, or hit him in the face with a hammer. I don't know. I didn't need so violent to crack a neck. Why didn't they beat him to a pulp with a hammer? That's what
It is very tropish, the idea of like, you can just punch a guy once and he's just knocked out for as long as you need him to be knocked out for your sequence. But this is, where we see, Joel was battling through the adrenaline here, takes this guy out, but got shanked in the process from this broken bat. And I mean, I don't know much about getting shanked, but if you do, I don't think you're supposed to rip it out.
Yeah, no, you definitely keep it in until the youth pastor can come and be like, oh, yes, you got shanked by the popcorn station. Let's go get you an animal-shaped balloon.
Sounds like a personal story.
And then go to the ponies where they ride away, just like Joel and Ellie do. I don't know. Yeah, back to the neck cracking thing. It's like... they watched it and he was like strangling the guy and they're like, oh, just insert a cracking sound and that will explain what happens here. And then the sound guy's like, oh, I gotta do this again. And then he
celery out.
He like cracks his knuckle. Yeah, celery. That's good. I like that. I was gonna crack a knuckle, but a celery's better. Celery's great. I love it with peanut butter.
No, this is a big action sequence in the game. And in the game, as opposed to just like one raider kind of like stabbing you, you end up like falling from 2 stories high into like this bit of rebar that's like popped out, and it's same kind of thing. It gets Joel in the side, but it's a really cool action sequence in the game where Ellie's kind of holding you on her shoulder and kind of dragging you along while raiders are still coming at you. It's a lot of kind of fun to play, but ultimately ends just how this does, of Ellie getting Joel on the horse and then booking it, even though Joel is a little worse for wear here.
Yep, he seems sleepy. He seems so sleepy that he falls off the horse and dies. And Ellie is sad. And she says, don't leave me. And he says, I must go to the Grey Havens where I will see my fathers. And then he dies. So that's how Joel dies. And it was sad. And then the music plays. And we will not see Joel or Pedro Pascal ever again in this life. And we are sad.
It is like, I think I mentioned this earlier, where Ellie's responses here are not like, Joel, are you okay? Joel, are you okay? But she's afraid of having to survive without him. And like, hey, you can't do this. I don't know what to do next. And
I don't even know where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, just absolutely heart-wrenching, and she doesn't know what to do, and then it just, boom, fades to black. There's another little bit here where this episode ends with the same song that ended the first episode. It was Never Let Me Down Again. It was that Depeche Mode song, kind of the idea of them playing an 80s song, meaning that they're in duress or something kind of bad is going on, which clearly is the case here. But it's actually sung by Craig Mazin's daughter, Jessica Mazin, which I thought was kind of interesting. Beautiful voice, and it's a kind of a beautiful kind of play on this song, because it was kind of more of an 80s poppy song in the first episode, and here it's a much more somber kind of ballad to take out this episode.
Yeah, I didn't know his daughter was in Depeche Mode. That's pretty incredible. Yeah, so here's the deal. I don't know if he's dead now. I just know that how these shows go, eventually he has to die. So if he dies in this episode, not going to be surprised. Eventually he's got to die. That's just, characters like Joel don't live to be sheep farmers. That's my stance. And I know you can't say anything because you know how this all ends. But Julian's prediction is everyone dies, the infected take over, they build a society, they become communists, it doesn't work, they all die, and we learn one more time that communism is not sustainable. That has been Julian's Capitalism Corner. Thank you.
Brilliantly done. I'm pretty sure fungi are communists, though, right? Don't they like share the ground and resources? I could be wrong. Like one in Oregon definitely is.
Oh, you're talking about the plants?
Yeah, like actual mushrooms.
Okay, I don't know. They can't play video games or watch TV, so they don't really matter.
You haven't played that? You haven't played that video game, Fungi Farmer?
No, I've never played Fungi Farmer.
Big Facebook game back in the day.
Nor have I played Plants vs Zombies, which seems like a mismatch of this show. But what I do know is I enjoyed this episode. I only got caught up in some of the choices that Joel made, and I think talking through it with you, I guess I see it a little bit more, but I still was a little bit caught off guard just based on what we've seen of Joel and then some of the decisions he makes. But I did like how they didn't let Tommy and Ellie go off and like Joel rides out after him. He was there. He's the one that goes. And he got his just desserts. He got a baseball shank to the stomach, which if had Tommy gone and Tommy gotten stabbed, he'd be real sad. Joel would be real sad. So I think this worked out how it was supposed to. The right person died. The right brother died. And I'm not talking about the people that created planes. All right. I enjoyed it, Tom. What do we do now? What we do now is if we miss something, if you have comments, not about any of the corners. We don't want emails about any corners. We don't want emails about gun corners, menstruation corners, communism corners, or capitalism corners. If you have anything else, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com, or Tom has all the other ones. Once again, he doesn't let me use them because he knows I would use them for evil. Tom, what are the other ones?
Yeah, Team Binge or Team Binge Podcasts. We're active on Instagram and Twitter. So join the conversation. It's been fun, and we appreciate those folks that have been following along. And as always, if you have the time and you enjoy what we do, we always appreciate you guys going through Apple Podcasts or the podcast of your choice and giving us a rate or review. It's always fun, and we appreciate when you guys do that as well.
Yep, we do. And next week, we will be watching episode 7 of The Last of Us, which is called Us.
Left Behind.
No Joel, because he died. Parentheses, the Taylor song or something. The Taylor Swift version, I think is what it's called. That next episode is called Left Behind. Take that as you will. Okay. I won't. Left Behind was a series with Kirk Cameron about the rapture, and that's the only thing that it means to me. The last thing I will say is, do you know, Tom, that there is going to be a time in TV shows where they do like sad, slow versions of Taylor Swift songs, just like they're doing to, at some point, Depeche Mode was Taylor Swift. And like now these shows, like any of those trailers where they like slow down a pop song and they make it real dramatic, eventually they're going to do that with like Taylor Swift songs. And that's when that's already a thing, man. Like, that's when I see what you're saying, old, Tom. That's but when we'll be old. I'm pretty sure we're already kind of old, but yeah, I think that's kind of a thing already. Old people don't have podcasts. That doesn't make any sense, Tom. Yeah, they don't know how to work these fancy microphones. Yeah. These buttons, all these switches. Wait, what does this thing do? What's this? Shout out to our sound guy, Danny. Thanks for your time. Yep. He's interning with us for the winter and summer and Tom's favorite season, spring. Anyways, I've been Julian. I'm done talking. And I've been Comrade Tom. Adios, everybody. All right. I think this is our last podcast, Ted. Good night.